So if I have a discrete sequence, I can get the Fourier DFT of that sequence as x of k. And if I have the DFT of a given sequence, then I can get back the original sequence using this x of k, that is the DFT of the sequence. So I can do both with the help of DFT and IDFT respectively. Now in this case, x of n is the time domain sequence and x of k is the frequency representation of that time domain sequence. So these all things, that is IDFT is inverse DFT. Then here we call x of n and x of k both together as a DFT pair. We term it as a DFT pair. Now, what is the equation for DFT of a signal? Now here, this is DFT of x of n, which is represented as x of k as over here, is given by this equation, which is represented by summation of n is equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi k n by capital N, where k is in the range of 0 to n minus 1. Now here one thing to just note down is the given sequence x of n will be having n number of samples, and its DFT also will be having n number of samples. And another thing to identify is these two signals are periodic in nature. They are periodic in nature. That's why you have the limits in the range of 0 to n minus 1. So 0 to n minus 1 in discrete implies you have total number of n samples. You have total number of n samples. And this factor you might be knowing with the different representations. That is, we write it as w n raised to kn. So in this case, it is minus kn. So this wn, what is there? If I just separate out this one, k into n, so I'll be left out with the overall this representation. So where wn is equal to e raised to j 2 pi by n. So this is called as Twiddle factor. This is called as Twiddle factor. There are some properties of this Twiddle factor. In this case, we are not looking forward for those. We'll be just seeing what is DFT, IDFT, and how it is applied for fast Fourier transform. So that is what we'll be looking out for. So here, DFT of the sequence x of n, that is x of k, is obtained with this equation. And one thing to remember is x of k is will be having n number of samples, and it is periodic. Even x of n is having n number of samples, and this is also periodic signal. And this term, right, gives rise to what is known as Twiddle factor, which is given by this equation what we have written over here. Now, in order to obtain the IDFT, I should have this sequence, that is the DFT of this x of n. So from this, I can get back the original information, that is x of n. So in this one, what I am doing, I am taking IDFT of the x of k, the sequence, which will give me back my discrete sequence x of n. Now, in order to obtain this representation, this is almost same. That is, here since k is present, therefore summation changes from k is equal to 0 to n minus 1 and x of k, and this one turns out to be e raised to plus j 2 pi kn by n. So if I write it in Twiddle factor form, it is wn raised to kn, where wn is e raised to j 2 pi by n. So this is what happens, and one extra this thing which comes is divided by n. The whole summation will be divided by the periodic sequence value of x of n. So that is what is represented. So in order to obtain inverse Fourier transform, this is the equation what we use. Now here n is the period of x of n and x of k. That is what we discussed. So what is the relationship between DFT and frequency response? So in previous signals and systems, you might have seen so many things. That is, if you know the Z transform, you can get the other representation of it. If you know the other transformation, you can get the representation of other, say, if you know Laplace transform, then we can get the other representations. So these all things you can identify. Now, if I know DFT of a signal, can I get the frequency response from that itself? So that is what we have to look out for. So now, as discussed, x of k is the DFT of the signal x of the sequence x of n, which is given by this equation. Now, frequency response is given by x of e raised to jt. So wherein it is given by this equation. So this also was present in the previous discussion what we had discussed. So this gives you the frequency response of the signal x of n. Now when I compare these two signals, right? When I compare, see what changes you can just observe. So this is n is equal to 0 to n minus 1. This is also same. This is summation. Here, instead of k, it is e raised to j theta. But we have to look out for overall stuff. This is x of n. This is x of n for the sequence. Now here, if you just see, it is e raised to minus j 2 pi kn by n, whereas on the other end I am having e raised to minus j theta n. I am having e raised to j theta n. So if I just neglect this one, that is not exactly neglecting. If I just get rid of this, I'll get to know what comparison has to be done in order to get the frequency response from x of k. So that is what I have to look out for. So if I want to get the frequency response from this, I have to make some substitute in this equation only in order to get the overall frequency response. So that is nothing but, so when I have this, x of k will be equivalent to x of e raised to j theta when theta will be equal to 2 pi k by capital N. So that is when I just compare it over here. So if this also goes off, 2 pi k by n remains. Therefore, if theta is equivalent to 2 pi k by n, then I'll be able to get the frequency response and the Fourier DFT of that sequence. So this is how I can obtain the frequency response, and this is what is the relation between DFT of a sequence and the frequency response of the signal. And here another thing to remember is this will give you both. It will give you the magnitude also, it will give you the angle also. Angle in the sense of phase response also. Magnitude response and phase response. Therefore, what we have is the distal frequency of the signal x of n is given by 2 pi by n, and it is represented in radians. So which we specify as the distal frequency of this sequence. Why distal? Because the signal turns out to be a discrete in nature. It turns out to be discrete in nature. So moving forward, so that what does the distal frequency imply? It implies that the elements are so whenever I have the sequence, right? Say if I start placing the elements of x of k, if I start placing the elements, so 0th element will be placed here, so which is 0. Next is the next element which is at location 1, so it will be placed at some angle over here, so which is the second sample, then the third sample, then the fourth sample, fifth, so on up to, say, if 8 samples are there, 8 sample will be placed, and all will be placed at the distal frequency spacing with respect to each other. So that is what it implies. So that is the representation, that is they are spaced at 2 pi by n. Now, if I want to know what is the corresponding analog frequency, I got to know that, okay, a distal frequency is 2 pi by n in this case. Now, why 2 pi by n? If you just observe this equation, right? So what is k? When k is 0, theta is 0. When k is 1, theta is 2 pi by Yeah, when k is 2, theta is, it is 2 pi, it is 2 pi by n into 2. So on, if I continue, it is 2 pi by n into 3, so on. That's why the spacing is at 2 pi by n radians, 2 pi by n radians. So when I observe this, so this is a distal frequency which we have got in radians. Now if I want the analog frequency spacing, right, delta f, for the elements of x of k, then how can I obtain it? Now it can be obtained with respect to this equation. Now what happens is, you have chosen the sampling frequency based on this condition. So once you pass the signal through the sampling, once you pass the signal to sampling process, right, you'll be getting x of n. So that is, you have a continuous signal x of t, and you pass it through the sampling process, you'll be getting a sequence x of n. Now in a previous this thing, right, we had seen in coding example, wherein you had a cos signal, you had taken it as 2 pi f fm into n, then you had divided it by, say, fs1, fs2, fs3. So what is actually happening over here, you are taking just the samples over here. So in this case, right, if I want to identify what is the analog frequency spacing between the samples, then I have to consider the sampling frequency, which is utilized to obtain the samples of x of t. In order to obtain the samples of x of t, this is what I have utilized. So in order to do that, and how many samples I have got? I have got around, say, n samples. I have got around n samples for each of the signal what I am using. So if x of t is passed through this sampling frequency, and I am having n number of samples out of this process, that is, say, after every n this thing, it repeats itself. So if I consider it in that form, then I'll be having, say, n number of samples. So in that case, what happens is, if I want to identify the analog frequency, it is the overall frequency divided by the number of samples. So this will give you the spacing between the samples. This will give you the spacing between the samples, but in analog form. But in analog form. So this is how I obtain the analog frequency spacing, wherein I take the sampling frequency divided by the number of sequences, or the periodic value of x of n, and I'll be getting the analog frequency spacing. Now fs, as we had seen, fs is nothing but it is 1 by t. It is 1 by t, where t is the sampling rate. So when I substitute it in this equation, right, it turns out to be 1 by nt. Now this n into t, I can just represent it as t naught. I can just represent it as t naught. So this is the analog frequency spacing delta f for the samples or the elements which are present in x of k. That is, which is the DFT of the sequence x of n. Now here T naught is specified as the signal record length, since T naught is equal to NT. So this is the overall length of that sequence. So signal record length. Now here one thing to just remember is, now if you just observe, if you increase T naught, if you increase T naught, delta F reduces. If T naught goes higher, delta F value will be smaller. So if it is smaller, what it implies is you are taking more number of samples over there. So larger the value of T naught, smaller and better is the frequency spacing. So you had seen the oversampling, undersampling conditions, right? So such kind of thing comes over here. So if you choose, if T naught keeps on increasing, if T naught keeps on increasing, larger the value of T naught, smaller and better the frequency spacing. So that is what happens in this case. Now another thing to just identify here is if delta f has to be decreased, then n has to be increased. Now what happens is generally if I just observe here, if frequency sampling is chosen in a proper form, aliasing will be eliminated in the initial stage, and later you can proceed in this form. So once I have done this, I don't have control over this one. I don't have control over this one. What I can do is I can try out how many number of sequences are present in that. So if I have to increase it, then what I have to do is I have to, if I increase this value n, right, then delta n will be smaller. That is, the frequency spacing will be smaller. So if it is very large, say only some few samples are present, it will be in this form. But if more number of samples are present, then what happens is more number of elements will be available. So that is what it implies in this case. Now, this you might have heard that you have to pad zeros in the sequence and then compute some, say, transformations or any other stuff, or then do the processing. So this you might have come across in many of the cases. So if, for example, if you want to obtain a FFT of a signal, generally if it is in radix 2, what happens is the sequence x of n has to be a power, has to contain elements, and the number of elements should be a power of 2. If you remember, the number of elements present in this should be a power of 2. So then I go in for applying radix 2 method for fast Fourier transform and then obtain it. Now suppose if it is not power of 2, for example, if I have a sequence x of n which is having only 3 elements, 0, 1, 2, which is having only 3 elements. So this is not the number of sequences which are present is 3, which is not a power of 2, which is not a power of 2. So what we do is one method what you follow is you pad extra 0 and then try to estimate the x of k, that is using, say, fast Fourier transform. So this is one method what you use. Now this has to be done in order to obtain x of k, and indirectly what you're doing is you are decreasing this delta f. So previously only if I just put the 3 samples, right, the 3 samples will be present, one sample here, one sample here, one sample here. But if I put a 0, right, so what happens is you have decreased the sampling, the analog this thing spacing between the uh, the elements of x of k. Now what you have done is you have placed 4 samples over there by padding one extra 0. So that is what you're trying to achieve here. That's why padding is done. So previously you were just specifying you pad the zeros and then go ahead. That padding has to be done or is done to achieve this. The padding is done to achieve or decrease the delta f value. So that is one method. Another method is if you remember, if you have that sequence 0, 1, 2. So this is again not power of 2, but I want to apply FFT on this and then obtain the x of k. So one method is padding, and another method is you divide this into this entire sequence into powers of 2. Suppose you have 6 elements, 3, 4, 5. You have 6 elements. So what you do is you divide this sequence into 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So which is power of 2, and then apply independently Fourier transform on this, Fourier transform on this, Fourier transform on this, and then you club the overall result in order to get the overall x of k. So there are some rules and regulations what you have to follow when you are doing this. So these all things you have come across in DSP. So that is what you will be doing in this case. So DFT and IDFT requires a large number of complex multiplies. So here you can see in previous equation, right? So if I just take this equation DFT, so this is a complex exponential. This is a complex exponential. So when I say, for example, if I substitute some value over here, I might get a real number or I might get a complex number. So the number can be in the form of a plus jb. So when I substitute some particular values, I'll be getting in general a plus jb, where either b can be 0 or a can be 0, or both numbers can take any values depending on what values you are substituting. So when I observe this, what happens is you will have to take this result and multiply with x of n. It is not only for one element, it will be for the n elements which are present. And it is not only for one entire thing, it will be for so many parameters over there. So when you observe this equation, right, you are having a complex exponential which might result in a complex number or real or any other number. And what you're doing is you are incorporating multiplication with the sequence x of n for all the n samples which are present in x of n. So here you can observe that there are large number of complex multiplications involved. Apart from multiplications, again you'll be having addition and other stuffs over there. That is, shifting is not present in this case. What other things are present is multiplication and addition in such cases. So here you can observe that DFT and IDFT have large number of complex multiplications. Now, what happens is in order to efficiently compute DFT and IDFT, right? If I go for the previous equation, right, it might take lot of time. That is, if I take this equation and if I give you n to be a 2 raised to 16, so imagine what amount of time might be involved in obtaining that. Even for n is equal to 8, that is just a 8 sequence length, you might have seen how much time it would take to compute. If I specifically mention that you have to use the equation for DFT, you cannot go for direct calculation. So if that is the case, you can imagine how much amount of time will be consumed in order to estimate the sequence x of k, or even the inverse. So how can I overcome this? So there were some algorithms which were proposed in order to overcome this and compute DFT and IDFT in a much efficient way. So when I compare this with the hardware, right? In hardware, if I am speaking of computing large number of say calculations, then what would happen is it would it would consume say a lot of power, it would consume a lot of time. So all these things, so how I can reduce this overall procedure? That is where your DSP architecture and algorithms come handy. So in this one, just few examples we have taken, so in which you can make use of prime factors for FFT algorithms, which is a FFT algorithm, Bruns FFT algorithm, Radar's FFT algorithm. So many stuffs are there in which what you do is you try to estimate the DFT of a given sequence in a much faster way as compared to using the regular equation. Now, in general, what happens is these algorithms make use of power of two. That is power of 2 points. That is what I discussed in previous slide, which basically tries to use the nature of periodicity of the exponential term which is present. So which is nothing but in our case, it is the twiddle factor what we are speaking, the twiddle factor Wn. Wn is periodic in nature. Wn is periodic in nature. So we try to use this, and in the radix 2 or the power of 2 points, we try to estimate the DFT in a much faster way. So that is what we are looking out for. So then we have radix 2 algorithm which uses n that has to be power of 2. So that is what I was discussing in previous slide. So radix 2 algorithms which sees that the number of sequences which are present in x of n is power of 2. If they are not power of 2, then there are different methods what you can utilize, that is padding the zeros and the other stuff what I spoke. Divide the sequence into powers of 2 sequences and then apply the DFT and then obtain, or FFT, and then obtain the overall result. So this is what we'll be doing. So just an example of fast Fourier transform. So here you can see, I think already you have studied this. So this is the DIT FFT. So here you can see that these sequences, that is x of k. So this is x of k in our case. So you can see it is 0, 1, 2, 3, so on up to 7. So here we have 8 sequences. Now in order to obtain this, and suppose I know what is x of n. So these are x of n. These are x of n. So in this case, you can see that it is having some special feature over here. Say in this case, this 0, if I take, it is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. So on I can continue, and I have lastly as 1, 1, 1. So now if I read this in reverse form, I'll be getting what sequence has to come here. So here if I read it, it is 0, 0, 0. Therefore it will be x of 0. And this, if I read it in reverse form, what I'm having 1, 0, 0, which turns out to be 4 in decimal. Therefore you have the fourth sequence, which is that is in the sequence which is present at the fourth space, that is at the fourth location. Then this one, if I read it in the reverse form, 0, 1, 0, again it is 2. So this one, the sequence will be x of 2. Say suppose another one example, if I take, it is 0, 1, 1, that is 3. And if I read it in reverse form, right, I'll be getting 1, 1, 0, which is 6. So that is x of 6. So this is how I get this sequence. So this is termed as what? Bit reversed addressing. This is termed as bit reversed addressing. So this is one of the special features of FFT. So this is one example what I have just shown over here, and you can see that we have these interconnects which are getting multiplied with the twiddle factors, that is weighted by the twiddle factors, and after that some calculations will be happening. So you can see over here also we have the twiddle factors. So at the end I'll be getting the overall x of k. Now just a few comparisons if I just take up. Say if depending on number of points, that is how many number of sequences are present. For example, let us consider just 4. So in that, if you just see for 4 number of sequences which are present in x of n, the complex multiplications which are involved in that direct computation. Direct computation implies using the equation x of k is equal to summation n is equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n e raised to minus j 2 pi by n into kn. So if I use that equation, it turns out to be when I estimate it in a manner, I'll be getting around n square number of complex multiplications. So for 4, I'll be having 16 complex multiplications, whereas in FFT algorithms, right, I'll be having just 4 complex multiplications. Now let us consider 8, which is the sequence which is present here. Let us consider 8. So when I estimate it in the other form, right, I'll be having 8 sequences, and all 8 sequences I should compute for each of the cases. So how it turns out is, so what you do is, first you estimate the general equation. So under this general equation, what you have is, you have x of 0, some factor plus or minus x of 1, so on up to x of 7. So you have total 8 number of sequences, and you have some multiplication factor. So after this, so these are the 8 multiplications what you will be doing. This will be done for all. So what you have to do is, you have to estimate x of 0 with all these 8 multiplications, x of 1 with all these 8 multiplications which are involved. So one multiplication with x of 0, one multiplication with x of 1, so on up to x of 7. So that is for the first sequence. So similarly for next one, again x of 0 multiplication, then x of 1 multiplication, then so on up to x of 7. So another 8 comes over here. So 8 for x of 0, 8 for x of 1, that is for this factor, then 8 for x of 2, and so on up to x of 7. So if you just observe, I'll be having 8 into 8 multiplications involved in this case, and those are not simple multiplications, those are the complex multiplications because of the complex exponentials which are present over there. So therefore you have 64 estimations or 64 calculations for multiplication. So for 8, what you have, first one, you have 64 multiplications when you're using the equation directly. But if I want to use the fast Fourier transform, the calculations, if you just see, it is just 12. So you can see how many computations have been reduced. From 64, you're coming directly to 12. So what you're doing, you're reducing the time required for the execution of this entire thing in order to obtain x of k. You are reducing the power consumption also in this case. You're saving a lot of power. So these all factors get added. And apart from that, since we are doing the calculations at a very fast rate, I'll be getting the results at a very faster time. At a very quick time, I'll be getting the overall result. Now, if you just observe here, n by 2. So n is 8. 8 by 2 is what I'll be having 4. And if you just see a log of 8, this is to the base 2. So this is how much? This is 3. This is 3 for this case. Since it is 2 raised to 3, 3 comes out. Log 2 to the 2 will be, it is 3 into log 2 to the base 2. Because this is 8 is 2 raised to 3. 8 is 2 raised to 3. So 3 comes out of the log and 2 remains, and this one is equal to 1. Therefore, this turns out to be 3. So what is this 3 implying? Log of n, you can just see how many butterfly stages you have. 1, 2, and 3. You have total 3 butterfly stages, so which is basically given by log of n. Now, if you just observe in each of the butterfly stages, how many multiplications you are observing. So those multiplications are with respect to this and this. So here with respect to this and this. So because Twiddle factor is a complex element, so that if I consider over there, I'm getting these things. So here in one butterfly stage, in this case, I am having 4 multiplications. Then here, if you just see, here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 multiplications, and here also I am having 4 multiplications. So if you just see 4 multiplications, which is nothing but n by 2, and if I multiply it with the number of stages, I have 3 stages. So it is log of n to the base 2. So in this case, it turns out to be 12. So that is how you are reducing the overall calculations. Otherwise, in the previous case, you are estimating around 64 computations, but here you are just using 12 complex multiplications. So speed improvement factor turns out to be around 5.3. So it is 64 divided by 12. So you'll be getting around 5.3. This one 16 divided by 4. The factor improved is 4. Now if you just go further, right, if n is equal to 1024, see here how many complex calculations are there. It is in 10 lakhs. It is in 10 lakhs. Whereas here, if you just see, it is just 5,000. So the factor has improved by 204. So this is the advantage of FFT. This is the advantage of FFT. Okay, I'll be winding up at this stage.